Women play myriad roles in our society. As mothers, they are the pillars who keep the social fabric intact. But we forget that they are vulnerable biological beings who need attention and care. Hello everyone, I, Aparna Singh, will now take you through a mother's life in my story, Ma. As she bent down to slice through the fish, her legs spread out, balancing her body on the floor, I noticed dark blood clots oozing out of her sari. Ma! Dada screamed in disbelief. What is this? Noticing a trace of anxiety in Dada's voice, Ma said, with her usual reassuring smile, Kichu na re, nothing dear, the fish is bleeding. Later that day, I heard Ma asking Dadu, my paternal grandfather, for his old, frankly unwearable lungis. I wondered why she would suddenly need a lungi. After all, she wore saris and sayas. In no time, the lungis were torn into symmetrical pieces with deft tugs and pulls, stuffed with old discarded cloth, unusable socks, etc., and shaped into small pillows. They were like the pillows I had for my dolls, neatly folded cylindrical cushions, except for the triangular tufts that hung from both ends. I noticed that her visit to the bathrooms had lengthened by quite a stretch, as I did the dark rings circling her lower eyelids. She limped out after one of those visits, her gait divulging her discomfort as she spread her legs precariously apart, trying to pry open her thighs. This part of Ma's life was unknown to me. A sense of betrayal mixed with a desire to unearth some hidden secret preoccupied me for nearly a month. Like a detective at work, I alerted myself to the slightest trace of anomaly in Ma's behavior. Her movements, I noticed, gradually acquired a crispness with every passing day. Since nothing suspicious caught my attention any further, I eventually decided to give up my quest, dismissing it as a one-time aberration. Dada never mentioned it to me either, even though I knew that he must have had his own list of unanswered questions. Time flies, as they say. I was growing up. Me boro hoyeche was the euphemism I often heard. I had reached the menstrual age. Dada was going to Kolkata for his entrance exam in presidency. Ma accompanied him and stayed to ensure the smooth transition from school to college for a month. Baba and I stayed back. I had learned some of the household chores and could cursorily fill in for Ma, at least for a month. Every day, as I managed to put my newly acquired skills to use, I expectantly waited for Ma's return. Today, when I think of it, I understand that no amount of expertise could have replaced the warmth she radiated and the inclusivity she believed in. It touched every little thing she did. We had gone to the bus depot to receive Ma. 1 month had been a long time, and I ached to see her embracing smile. We waited for her to disembark, and it was after some people had passed by that Ma alighted. Her face looked pale, almost drained of life. She had wrapped a bedsheet around her like an ill-fitting long skirt. On taking a closer look, I realized it was soaked in blood. I dashed towards her, her steps unsteady, faltering. She could have stumbled any moment. My heart leapt in fear, and a shriek escaped my trembling lips. Ma! How weak and disoriented she looked. I held her firmly, not letting her go till we reached home. She lay on the bed, exhausted and sick. It took her a couple of weeks to revive. Food arrangements were made by Mamar Badi, her brother's household, which was close by. I learned that she had been bleeding profusely the entire month. "Boloni keno ma? Why didn't you inform us?" I asked incredulously. My voice trembled as tears sprung to my eyes. "You were so far away, my darling. I didn't want to bother you all," she replied. I have come to realize that there was more to it than the distance. She and everyone else, including Baba, found the blood a regular womanly mess, not particularly in need of immediate medical intervention. I felt angry and helpless at the same time. How could Ma not consider this important enough? Soon enough, Baba had to take her to the doctor as her health was taking longer than usual to recover. Some regular blood tests were suggested. They were done, but maybe so much was left undone. An ultrasonography could have changed her life. I feel now, years after my experience of grappling with various kinds of health crises. It was an esoteric medical mumbo-jumbo then. The very remembrance grips me with a fresh wave of anxiety. Looking back at it with adult eyes, I regret how ill-informed we were. Maybe we never even took adequate efforts to educate ourselves sufficiently. This inability or this willed indifference looks no less than a grave offense against Ma, and no amount of self-laceration can probably be punishment enough. It breaks my heart to recount how exacting the arduous overnight bus journey must have been for her. With her characteristic humor, she had told me about the lady co-passenger who had made no effort to hide her contempt and disgust. The rancid odor of menstrual blood was not something the poor old thing had bargained for, she added with a wry smile. I nodded absently as my stomach clenched. The uniqueness of the bus sits clearly in my memory. Rocket bus services. And without an iota of doubt, I can say that the services it provided were truly rocket-like, with no earthly comforts like much-needed restroom breaks. The wheels of domesticity eventually returned to their previous efficiency. For no justifiable reason, none that I can think of today, we had consciously cultivated an aversion to surgery, and even the most difficult of physical problems were treated through Ayurvedic and homeopathic medicines. It was only in the direst straits and to avoid social censure that allopathy was thought of as a probable alternative redress. This prolonged the delay in getting Ma much-needed medical facilities, which certainly hammered the first nails in her future coffin. The reasons behind her low hemoglobin levels could never be diagnosed. Again, this was due to lack of relevant tests. When Ma experienced menopause at the age of 50, she was relieved of these long, agonizing years of pain and physical discomfort. In a celebratory mood, She discussed this with our next door neighbor. I have, at last, rid myself of this monthly woe. Thank God. Now I can put behind all these years of misery, she had exulted. Those moments, safely but obliviously tucked in some remote corner of our collective memory, were never relived again. The damage had been done, and it was irrevocable. Ma never brought it up, and we never attempted to salvage the remains of the wreck. That wreck, which was now a ruin. The last 50 days of my mother's life was grueling, filled as they were with the unfathomable sufferings of medical treatment. My Bodhi, my brother's wife, Ma's only daughter-in-law, was witness to it. Bodhi came into our life much after Ma had outgrown her menstrual trauma. When asked by the doctors to produce Ma's medical records, particularly the ones reflecting the track of her menstrual history, Bodhi was clueless. As expected, she was unable to give the doctors a clear picture. Facts about Ma's past, fuzzy, were irretrievably lost. The documents, of course, never existed.